Happy Friday, folks. So, who wants to make more money? Well, that's what today's Big Friday Finish is all about. The next hour is going to be content rich. It's about wealth creation. And yes, it's about helping you make a lot more money. What's going to be covered? Well, a depth of insight, information, and knowledge on how to buy businesses and sell them for big profits. You're going to want to take notes. You're going to want to make comments. You're going to want to ask questions. There will be a lot of content that's coming your way. So let's welcome to your screen the man of the hour. They call him the deal maker. He makes deals happen. His name is Jonathan J. Are you there, Jonathan?
What a great introduction. Thank you so much.
Well, look, really, really pleased that we've got you this afternoon. By the way, is that a celebrity name, Jonathan J, or is that actually your real name?
That's my real name.
Wow. Well, if you could choose a name, you're going to go for a name like that. It's pretty impressive. You know, I've seen what you've prepared for us this afternoon, so I'm going to hand over to you at this stage. I'm going to urge people to make comments, ask questions. We are going to be asking you questions. We're going to put you in the hot seat in about 38 minutes time. Let's have some fun. Let's learn how to make some money. Over to you, Jonathan.
Fantastic. Okay, so the next 38 minutes or so, we are going to be talking about how to buy a business using other people's money. I don't care how much money you've got. If you can buy a business without spending it, surely that's going to be a good thing. So I'm going to be showing you some case studies of businesses that I've bought. I'm going to be telling you about some businesses that I've sold as well. I'm going to tell you about businesses that I've grown via acquisition. And I'm going to be giving you some case studies of some of my colleagues who've done exactly the same thing. I don't need to think it's just something that a few people can do. I'm going to give you some examples of all different sectors, all different types of businesses, big businesses, small businesses, and how they've acquired other people's companies without having to dip into their savings, cash out their ISAs, go to the bank, put their house on the line, and do all those things that people do if they don't know what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to show you how it really works in the world of buying a business using other people's money. Now, I would imagine, because I think I've met a few people who might be on the session today. Some of you do know me, but not everyone does. So I'll give you just the one slide background. Don't worry, no pictures of my childhood. You're just going to see a few relevant bullets here. So when I was 27 years old, I had my eyes opened because I sold a publishing business. And on the Friday afternoon that I sold this magazine publishing business, I made more money than I'd ever made in the previous 2.5 years of working very, very long hours, owning and running that business. So I'd slogged my guts out for 2.5 years, but made more money that Friday afternoon when I sold it. And I had my eyes open to the world of mergers and acquisitions. Now, sometimes you've got to learn the same lesson several times before it really sinks in. So it took me a few years to really get going on this. But the genesis of this was when I was 27 years old. I then grew a business by acquisition. So I bought out my main competitor, and I sold that larger combined business, my business combined with my competitor, put into one, to private equity in 2007. And if you know anything about private equity, you'll know they don't do deals in the hundreds of thousands, they do deals in the millions. And it was a pretty life-changing event. In fact, I'm going to be telling you a little bit more about that later on. Now, over the years, I've written 10 books on business. I've grabbed some out of my bookshelves to show you. This first one here, that was in 2004. So what's that? It's 18 years ago. That's the edition that went in the shops. Various books on business, on marketing, on sales, and you get the idea. Quite a few. Quite prolific. I was knocking out one a year at one point. And then more recently, probably the most popular books I've ever written on buying a business buying strategies, and 101 tough questions answered. So even if you've never come across me before, I've been around for a while. And over the years, I've bought and sold from private equity and trade, including a £1 deal, a business I bought for £1, and I turned it into £1.3 million in 11 months. And that's a case study that I'm going to be sharing with you in about 20 minutes time. I've grown a group by acquisition. I did 48 business acquisitions in 2.5 years, in 30 months, and it nearly killed me. And no word of a lie. I actually ended up in hospital. The stress and the workload was absolutely huge. I wouldn't recommend trying to buy 48 businesses in 2.5 years. And now I'm focusing on work-life balance and doing fun things like talking to you guys on a Friday afternoon. So buying a business is the fastest way to grow a business available, and it allows you to cash out at the largest numbers. Now, if you own a business, at some point you might be thinking about selling it in the future. And of course, if you're thinking about selling it, you want to sell it at the very highest possible price. Who doesn't? But one of the fastest ways to get that big price, get that big value, is to become as large and as profitable as you can possibly be. And the fastest way to do that is to acquire a similar business, a complementary business, a competitor, the same type of business as yours in a different county or even a different country. And that's what we're talking about today. But this isn't all about me. I want to introduce you to some colleagues of mine, people that I've known for a number of years, who've done exactly the same thing. And they're all in very, very different sectors, and they've used different methods to buy businesses. So I'm going to run through some of these because I think you'll find this very interesting, as how you can apply this to all different sectors, regardless of the size of your business. So Andy's based in the south west of England. He's in the digital marketing space. And the first deal that he did, which was buying another digital marketing company, doubled the size of his business. Now, it had taken him 10 years to get to the size that he was. He and I met at a conference that I was speaking at. I persuaded him that buying a business was a good idea. In fact, actually, he kept telling me that he didn't have time. He said, Jonathan, I want to do it, but I don't have time. I think it's a great idea. I don't have time. Until I said to him, look, Andy, it's all excuses. Let's just do the first deal. He did the first deal, and he added the equivalent of 10 years of growth in that one afternoon that he completed on the deal. He's done 4 acquisitions since. Now, this is Daniel. Daniel is in the engineering sector, so very different to digital marketing. And his first acquisition was a 3 million revenue business. So turning over £3 million a year, making £400,000 a year profit. And he bought that business without using any of his own cash. And the methodology he used, and we'll touch on this again a little bit later on if we have time, is that he used the building that the business owned as the way of generating the cash to give the seller on day one. So the seller of the business was very happy. They had money in their pocket. Daniel was very happy in that he owned this business, making £400,000 a year without having to dip into his own savings to buy it. Now, Darren's one of my favorite stories. He went into a brand new sector for him. His background was IT, and he went into hairdressing because his daughter wanted to start a hairdressing salon. And he said, oh, I've heard all about this business buying thing from Jonathan, and we'll buy a business. And he actually went and bought 21 hairdressing salons during lockdown. Now, actually, I haven't touched base with him for about 6 months. So I don't know where he's at now, but that's what he did during the lockdown period. And he created the largest hairdressing salon group in the region. He's in the south of England, in the Hampshire area. Now, this is Gavin. Gavin's up in Manchester. So hopefully by showing you these case studies, you can see that it works for all different types of businesses in different ways. He's in the printing sector. So he started off just as a small printing business. He is now a large printing business because he's done 9 acquisitions, and he's done all of those in the last 24 months. So when you get motoring with something like this, you pick up some momentum, you can really get some speed and some pace. And he's now got his eye on the exit. He's got a number in mind that he wants to hit. He's worked backwards to know what multiple EBITDA that he needs, and he knows how many more acquisitions he needs to do to get him to that magic number. This is John. John is in another different sector. He's in the IT sector, and John has made quite a career over the last few years buying distressed assets. So he buys businesses that have seen better days, maybe businesses that have got themselves in a bit of a pickle. He buys the assets to rescue the customers, the suppliers, the staff, and now he's got a substantial IT services business. And what he says all the time is this is so much faster than organic growth. I mean, we can add a customer today, add a customer tomorrow, or we can add 500 customers with one acquisition. This is Perry. Perry took a completely different approach to business buying. He went for businesses with government contracts. So he went for larger deals, and he did in the first 12 months of getting into the world of buying a business, he did 2 multi-million pound acquisitions. Now, here's a top tip for everyone, is that the size of the business doesn't matter so much. Quite often it's easier to buy a larger business than it is to buy a smaller business. The reason for this is that larger businesses have better management in place, they have better financials, and they are actually easier to finance when you're buying a larger business. This is Peter. Peter bought 9 businesses totaling £20 million of annual revenue. And the best thing about this, I always think, is that he did it whilst living in France. And most of this was during lockdown. So he was in his farmhouse in France, probably drinking a nice bottle of wine in the evenings, at the same time as closing these deals in the UK. Now, he's sector agnostic, which means that he doesn't really care what type of business it is, as long as it is a profitable business, of course. This is Peter. Peter is in IT services as well. His first acquisition just cost him £1. £1 to buy a highly profitable business. Now, you might be thinking what many people think at this point, which is, well, that seems too good to be true. How on earth or why would someone sell you a highly profitable business for just £1? Well, the clue's on the screen, even though actually I've just noticed there's a typo on that slide, because there was a highly motivated seller. So there was a seller who wanted to get out. It wasn't all about the money. They just wanted to hand Peter the keys. Now, the question is, are there lots of people like that? Well, the pandemic created a situation where lots of business owners just wanted to leave their business, and this oncoming recession is doing exactly the same thing. So if you're interested in buying a business, your timing is actually very good indeed. Now, just because he paid £1 on day one for the business didn't mean that the business is effectively free. It just meant that he deferred the balance of the payments into the future, but more about that later on. Phil, I'm so proud of my friend and colleague, Phil. He's just done his first deal. He did it in May of this year. First deal, 7 million in revenue. It's a transport and trucking business, making 1 million of profit. He paid 1.7 million pounds for the business, but none of his own cash was required. And now he has £730,000 cash at bank. He actually showed me his online banking a couple of weeks ago to prove it to me. And I'll tell you exactly how Phil did that and the method that he used later. And then we've got Ray, logistics business. He started with a £700,000 a year business. He did 3 deals. He's now got a £2.9 million a year business, all through doing acquisitions. So the light bulb moment for many of you right now listening to this, and certainly the light bulb moment for me many years ago, was that you make money from doing deals, not just from running a business. And when you buy a business, you make money in 3 ways. The first is when you actually buy it. Yep. When you buy a business, you can actually make real money, real cash. There are situations where when you buy a business, you actually can over-finance the acquisition, which means that you are left with money over that is yours. And in some cases, depending upon the type of business, it's actually possible that on acquisition, the seller gives you money rather than you giving the seller money. Now, that takes a moment to sink in. I appreciate that. And it's a little confusing the first time you hear it, but it's a very possible situation in some sectors. The second time you make money from business acquisition is when you own the business. So you make money from the profit of the business. And of course, when you sell the business. So when you become a deal maker rather than just a business operator, it actually saves you time to reaching your goals. You get there faster. It saves you money because instead of spending 3 years trying to figure out whether a startup is going to work, you can buy a business that's been operating for 3 years and has got cash flow from day one. And it can save you a lot of frustration with business growth as well. So I know when I chat with business owners, we optimistically, we're all very similar. We say that every year is going to be better. Next year is going to be better than this year. And sometimes we think that working longer hours, evenings and weekends equals greater success. And sometimes it's very hard to get scale. It's very hard to break that £1 million a year barrier, for example. And sometimes we find that the biggest blockage in our business is ourselves. We limit ourselves. And quite often we pay everyone else and we get paid with what's left over, if there is anything left over. And sometimes you're just so busy, you can't see the wood for the trees. Now, that's the typical business owner in the UK. But when you buy a business, it actually creates a solution to all of those problems. So for the people who say they want to 10x their company, this is the fastest way to get there. If you're struggling with marketing, you might ask yourself, who's already got the customers that I want? Let's go and buy that business that's already got those customers. Maybe you can't find the right team or management team. Well, you can buy them as part of a deal. And if you're trying to break into new markets, maybe a new part of the country or even a new country, just go and buy a business that's already operating there. And if you're frustrated by your competitors, like I've been over the years, then you can buy them out. I'll give you an example of that in a moment. So why don't more people use it? If this is so good, why don't more people do this? But sometimes people have just never thought of it. Yeah, they keep their head down, working in their business, never think about buying. Or they think they need lots of money to buy a business. They think they need millions in the bank. Or they don't have the expertise to put together the deal. They don't have a team to help them. And maybe it seems like it's time consuming, like Andy in our example earlier thought he was too busy to buy a business. In actual fact, he found that as soon as he bought that first business, he actually now had a larger business that could employ a management team to give him more time back. So you will make more money buying and selling companies than you will ever make from just running a company. So you need to transform your thinking from being a doer to a deal maker. So it's working on the business rather than in the business. So here's a quick case study of how I added £2.5 million to the value of a business with one acquisition. Now, this was a business that I started. I actually started this business 23 years ago in 1999. In our first year of operation, we turned over £960,000. Now, that was when £960,000 actually meant something 23 years ago. I'm joking, of course, but you know what I mean. In year two, we did 1.4 million, nice growth curve. Year three, 1.9 million, not bad, still going in the right direction. Year four, even better, 2.2. Year five, we were at 2.2 on year five as well. We plateaued. Now, when a business plateaus, it often gets stuck for a number of reasons that we won't go into today, but there's all those reasons why you can't seem to get the business unstuck. But look at year six. We more than doubled the turnover and the corresponding profit in year six. So what happened? Let me tell you what happened. I received a phone call from my main competitor. He said, Jonathan, would you come and see me because I've got a proposition for you? And I said, oh, Peter, really, you've messed me around before. He was a competitor. We didn't get on that well. He said, look, Jonathan, I really want you to come and see me in Wolverhampton. So I went up the next day to Wolverhampton to see him. So that was the Monday afternoon. I went and sat down with him. And by Friday afternoon of the same week, I owned my competitor's business. So when people say they haven't got time to buy a business, that deal actually took me Monday afternoon to Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday afternoon, Thursday afternoon, 4 days to Friday afternoon, 4 days. Now, here's the thing. I asked my accountant to value my business in 2007, 12th of January 2007, and the sensible valuation was £2.5 million. Now, not bad. I was in my early 30s. That's a pretty solid amount of money. But I actually sold it the same year on November the 17th. Again, it was a Friday. These deals usually complete on Fridays for £5 million. I doubled the exit value. What happened? What happened was I bought my competitor. So if you own a business right now, you might be thinking to yourself, if I could buy a competitor, maybe that would get me to my exit faster. Now, a question I get asked a lot is it actually possible to buy a business for £1? You know, people hear about these £1 deals. Chelsea Football Club was sold for £1, for example. So let me give you a very quick case study of a business that I bought for £1. It was a £1 investment that bought me a digital marketing business that was turning over 4.75 million in annual revenue. Now, a question you might be asking yourself is, yeah, how long would it take you to get to 4.75 million from a standing start, from going from zero? Well, usually the answer is a number of years. So it was a 4.75 million a year business, but it came with its problems. I mean, you don't buy a business for £1 unless it's got some problems. So some of the problems were it was making a £300,000 a year loss. Now, a quick word of caution based upon the experience of myself and the experience of my colleagues is that you never buy a business making a loss unless you know two things: why it's making a loss, and number two, how to fix it. Now, if you don't know the answer to those two questions, run a mile. It also had a negative balance sheet of 20 million. Now, the owners were a private equity firm based in London, very, very well known, very established private equity firm. And this business had languished in their portfolio. It had terrible management. The 20 million pounds actually represented what they paid for the business, and it was in the business as a loan note back to them. Now, I completed the deal in 12 weeks. Even though I was only buying it for £1, there was actually an awful lot of paperwork, and nothing is easy in the world of private equity. It took me 6 months to turn the loss into a profit because I understood the business and I knew exactly what to do. It then took me 12 weeks to sell the business. I sold it to a trade buyer based in Cheshire, and I sold it for £1.3 million, exactly 324 days after the acquisition. Now, I'm not telling you the story because I think for one moment this is going to be the first deal anyone's ever going to go out to do. But I tell it really as a source of inspiration. When you know what you're doing, these are the sorts of things you can do. So let me give you the 4 golden rules of business acquisition. The first is never use your own money. Now, I don't care how much money you've got. At some point, you're going to run out if you spend it on buying businesses. So keep your money in the bank and let's use some smarter ways of buying businesses. I'll give you 4 or 5 ways of doing that in a moment. The second is you never run the business yourself. Now, in recent years, I've been sucked into the running of businesses and getting involved too much in businesses. And I can tell you something, it really stresses you out. So the key is to have an excellent management team that not just run the business on a day-to-day basis, but run the business strategically as well. The HR, the marketing, an MD, an FD, all of those people. The third is you never take personal risk. I sometimes hear about people who buy businesses in their own name, or they use their existing business to buy a business. No, you need to use a series of holding companies and special purpose vehicles to buy businesses. Otherwise, they could be personal risk. I'd never want anyone to do this and have any personal risk. And number 4 is plan your exit early. Now, with the example of the £1 deal a moment ago, I was actually looking for the buyer of the business before I'd even bought it myself. So I was looking for who I could sell it to even before I physically owned it. Now, a lot has changed in the last 24 months with the pandemic in particular and the change in the economy. So some of the things that have changed are actually in your favor. If you're interested in buying a business, things are now really lining up to work in your favor. The first is availability of deals. Now, this means how many businesses are available to buy at any one time. Now, a couple of quick tips on this. The last place you want to go to when buying a business are business brokers. for your first deal. Now, there are a good source of deals later on, but initially for your very, very first deal, I would not try and suggest that you should negotiate with a business broker who's a professional negotiator when it comes to selling a business. What we want to be doing is we want to be going off market straight to the owner of the business. The second thing is, because of the economy that we are living in, and because so many people are still reeling from the effects of the pandemic, there's actually a greater ability now to do no money down deals than ever before. Now, let me just put it on record that I don't really like that phrase, no money down. I think it sounds a bit tacky, to be honest, but I think people also get it. People understand it when I explain it to them, that this is an acquisition that does not involve you putting money into the deal. Doesn't mean that the business is free. I mean, it'd be nice if it was, and sometimes they are, but we're actually putting other people's money into the deal rather than our own. Now, you can actually do deals faster now than ever before. So if you've got a motivated seller, what you can do, if you understand the business buying process, is get that deal over the line in weeks rather than the months and months it takes some people. And also the type of acquisition has changed. So by type of acquisition, you've typically got two ways to buy a business. You can buy the shares or you can buy the assets. Now, pre-pandemic, the majority of acquisitions of the people that I know were share purchases. Since the pandemic, during and now, the typical acquisition type is an asset purchase. Now, when you say asset purchases, people always think, oh, it's tables and chairs. Well, they are assets, but they're worth nothing. What we're talking about here is equipment, machinery, manufacturing businesses, or for businesses that don't have that type of asset, we're talking about the customer contracts. So if you're a digital marketing company and someone's got 100 customer contracts, supplying them with Facebook advertising and web design, for example, you can buy those contracts and leave the company behind, because when you're buying the shares, you get everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So some of the misunderstandings that people have is that they think they can't buy a business because they don't have the bank balance. Well, I can absolutely assure you from the people that I know doing this right now, in actual fact, when they don't have very much money, that gives them the determination to make it happen. Sometimes people say they don't have a great credit rating. Well, your credit rating is irrelevant. If we do get funding to buy the business, we aren't personally getting it. It's not on our personal credit rating. And as I've said a couple of times, no money down does not mean that the business is free of charge. It just means that we don't have to put our own cash into the deal. And as I've also said, you should never go to a business broker for your first deal, because you will be negotiating against a professional. Build up some experience first and maybe use brokers as a source of deals for your second, your third, your fourth, and so on. So what are the most common methods of financing a deal? What are the most common ways we can do this? The first is, as you might hear on the adverts for sofas and kitchens, buy now, pay later. So we can actually buy a business today and we can pay for it over 3, 4, 5 years. And we pay for it with money that the business itself generates. So the business actually becomes self-financing. The acquisition becomes self-financing. Now, most deals are between 3 and 5 years, deferring payments for 3 to 5 years. I have recently encountered someone who's bought 5 accountancy practices, and the first deal that she did, she actually deferred the payments over, hold on to your hats, 20 years. I mean, I still can't get my head around why someone would agree to that, but he was absolutely insistent that he wanted paying over 20 years. He saw it as a pension rather than a lump sum. The next thing that we can do is we can raise finance against the assets. So this is the equipment, the machinery. And when I gave you the example earlier of Phil, who bought the trucking company and showed me his bank balance of £750,000, that was finance raised against the assets. Now, of course, the finance is paid back over time from the trading of the business, but the cash released can be used to acquire the business itself. We can also use the company's own cash. So I know people who specifically look for businesses that are cash rich, and we can use that money to give to the owner of the business to allow them to take the benefit of entrepreneurs relief, or business asset disposal relief, as it's now called. And we can use the company's own cash to create the down payment, the initial payment for the business. We can also borrow against the debtor book. So the B2B debtor book, the people who owe money to the business, as long as they are in credit terms, we can borrow 60, 70, 80, sometimes 90% of the debtor book, and we can use that money to acquire the business as well. And then there's cash flow finance. Now, I would strongly suggest the very first business that you buy is a solid, profitable business. Don't go looking at businesses that are sort of on their knees. We want a solid, profitable business, because then we can use cash flow finance, if we don't have the opportunity to use the other methods, to finance the deal. And that's money that is borrowed against the strength of the future cash flows of the business. So what can stop you? Because I see a lot of people stopping themselves. The first thing is lack of deal options. So if you're going to be doing this, your focus needs to be on looking for businesses to buy, looking for as many businesses to buy as possible. The chances of the first business you look at being the business that you buy are quite slim. Imagine like buying a house. So you're going to buy a house, you go to the estate agent. The estate agent might give you the details on one house. You go and view that house and you buy it. You're going to look at a few, aren't you? You're going to shop around and see what's out there, compare some values, compare some prices. That's exactly what you need to do when it comes to buying a business. The second thing is lack of knowledge. I've got to say that lack of knowledge can be a very dangerous thing in many areas, including buying a business. It's very, very important that there is no personal risk when you buy a business. And the people that kind of wing it, if you like, and so make it up as they go along, are usually sort of heading for a little bit of a fall. So get yourself as knowledgeable as possible on the process. And then there's this lack of confidence and belief in the process. I think that so much of buying a business is the conversations that you have with the owner and the confidence that you portray, but also your belief in the process, understanding exactly how it works, the ins and the outs of the acquisition. Because if you're sitting down with the seller of a business, you've got to know more about the process than them. Because if they know more about the process than you do, you're now at a disadvantage. If you want the upper hand in your negotiations, then you need to be as knowledgeable as possible about the entire business buying process. And finally, it's mindset. The most successful business buyers I know are the people who believe they can do it. The people who talk themselves out of it, tell themselves they haven't got time, tell themselves it's too difficult, tell themselves other people can do it, but they can't. You're right, they won't be able to do it. The people who say, okay, I'm going to do this. I need a clear plan of action. I'm going to understand the process. I'm going to go out. I'm going to find the deal, negotiate the deal, put the financing together, know exactly how to structure the deal and get the deal over the line to completion. They are the people who are successful. The positive people win. The negative people will always struggle. And I'm kind of think that anyone who's going to be on a webinar like this on a Friday afternoon with Action Coach is going to be the positive, optimistic, I can do it mindset person. So that means that everyone on the webinar today, you all qualify. You can all do it. The question now is, when are you going to get started? And now we can move to questions. Any questions? And I hope there are. I hope there are lots of questions.
Oh, James. Of course they are. Yes. Wow. Look, I've been taking notes here. That was action packed. There was lots of content in there. We do want your questions. Look, there's an obvious one. That mindset that you finished with there, it was interesting because you did quite a good job of actually instilling belief in me. I was like, do you really believe that you can go and buy a business? I mean, you've done a really good job actually in the last half an hour or so of making it sound really simple. Now, the reality is, not that many business owners buy other businesses. That's the reality. Yeah,
that's very true. Yeah, that's true.
So why don't more people grow through acquisition? Why did people keep choosing the organic route?
I think that it's because they believe that it's something that private equity does. They believe it's the big boys do it. You can't be an SME. You can't be a business turning over hundreds of thousands or single digit millions and do something like this. Or you need a lot of cash in bank to do it. And both of those things just aren't true. I mean, I have people people I know who are that never owned a business before, and instead of starting a business from scratch, they go and buy a business, and they've got cash flows from day one. So there's a massive positive of having positive cash flow from the very first month that you own the business.
Yeah, I get that actually. You know, this illusion, because we can all create illusions in situations like, oh, it must be the big boys, or it must be the big guns or the big ladies. Just making sure they do it.
Yeah,
we've got a few questions that are coming in actually here. So Nick Burridge, he's a They Ask You Answer coach here, is a legend here. So he's put, is it legal fees? And he's got a few question marks on there. So just give us a comment on legal fees.
Yeah, sure. So obviously you're going to have professionals. I mean, you shouldn't buy a business without a lawyer, because you want to make sure you get the paperwork right. I mean, it's very important. You always take good legal advice, and good lawyers charge good money. And for a small deal, it might just be £1,000 to get the deal over the line. For a larger one, it might be £10,000 or £15,000. But the thing is, you don't pay lawyers in advance. If people are paying lawyers in advance, you've got the wrong lawyer. You need to go renegotiate your deal. The lawyer sends you the bill when the deal completes. So they send you the bill afterwards, and you ask them to address the bill to the business that you've just bought. So the business that you bought pays the bill. So everyone that I know who's buying businesses uses exactly this process. They get the business that they're buying to pay the legal fees and accountancy or fees like that.
That is what you call the blinding flash of the obvious. That is really good point. I really like that answer. So fantastic question there, Nick. Nick's getting a few questions in here. He's serious. But there was a little light bulb ping there. Whoever's putting that on behind the scene. That's definitely that. We've got Mike Greenwood. He's wading in. He always wades in on these conversations. Mike is a legendary business owner over in Manchester.
Mike.
I'm looking for an electrical engineering business to help expand ours. So he's got an electrical engineering business. Where should I start looking? Any advice?
So I'm going to give you a big piece of advice squashed into a couple of sentences. Okay. Right. So there are people called data brokers. And you go to a data broker and you say to a data broker, I want the names and addresses of all the electrical engineering businesses in Manchester, Nottingham, north of England, south of England, London. And they will, you pay your money and they will send you a database, an Excel spreadsheet. You then send all those people a letter that essentially says, do you want to sell your business? You've got to be a little more eloquent than that, but basically, do you want to sell your business? In the old days, we used to call this direct mail. That was pre-internet, and we send the letter. Do you want to sell your business? Because we're interested in buying a business like yours, and then you wait for the phone to ring, Mike. So that's the process. I've summarized it down, cut out the detail, but that's essentially what you do.
You're definitely going to have to keep doing that, Jonathan, because the questions are coming in thick and fast. So let's just respond to all of these. Right. So Nick Burridge, he asked the previous question. When I bought a business, the broker fee and the legal fee was around 50K. Any comment on that 50K fee? Good, bad?
Well, it depends what you're buying. I mean, if you're buying a business that only does a couple of 100,000 a year, then that's really not good. And broker fees are paid by the seller, not by the buyer, unless you instructed a buy-side broker to go and find the deal for you. You don't need to do that. You can use the method that I just explained with Mike. So I can't really comment whether it's a good fee or a bad fee because it depends how big the business is. I've paid legal fees way higher than that, but then it's a big business that I bought.
Lucy Claire Allen, that's a fantastic question. This, so a lot of people are thinking this. Would you advise you buy your first business in an industry that you're familiar with?
Yeah, 100%. Because why wouldn't you? If you understand something, you don't have the learning curve. I mean, I'm terrible with technology, as James knows from our getting everything to work with me earlier. So I'd never buy a technology business. I wouldn't have a clue. I'd be walking around going, what does this company actually do? So if you understand something, if you know something, stick with what you know. Alternatively, get a business partner who does.
I thought you bought a tech company.
Oh, as digital marketing, yeah. But I didn't have anything to do with it.
Digital marketing. Look, I did prepare a question earlier on, actually. I'm just going to pull that on screen because this was something that you said. I thought it was another light bulb moment. Give us another ping behind the scenes, Wolfster. Give us a few of them, please. When you said, if it's loss making, you must know why it's making a loss and how to fix it.
Yes.
Now, my question for you was going to be: are there any traps there? Because familiarity could breed a trap. It's like, yeah, I know how to fix this. Now,
yeah,
is there's one thing in believing that you can fix it? What's the reality of that?
I think that people should focus on being a business buyer of profitable businesses
Right.
rather than business fixers. You need to have a certain personality to be a business fixer. You can't get stressed easily. You need to be able to deal with problems coming out of your ears, hitting you all different directions. And quite frankly, most of us want to sleep well at night.
Yeah.
So being a business fixer is hard work. Being the buyer of a profitable business that makes money day in, day out, that's the easier life. And that's the one I would encourage everyone to certainly start with.
Look, keep your comments, keep your questions coming in, folks. We've got about another 14 minutes of questions here, so we're going to keep powering through all these. Let's keep the intensity. So Nick again, he's asking a question that a lot of people are thinking: where do I find the businesses to buy? Is it websites? Do I phone people up? Do I go knocking on doors?
Yeah, sure.
Where do we go?
So the websites typically are listings from business brokers. So we're back where we said we shouldn't go for the first deal, the business brokers. So my sort of secret, if you like, to what I've always done is I've used good old fashioned direct mail. I've just sent letters through the post, and I have colleagues who are sending tens of thousands of letters a year, but they're building huge empires. They're on that their 13th, 14th, 15th acquisition.
Sending a letter saying I want to buy your business.
So yeah, are you interested in selling your business? If you are, give me a call. Now, it needs to be phrased a little bit more sort of professionally than that, but that's essentially what we're asking people.
Yeah, I know I've had experience of receiving that sort of thing, and I think it's not as common as what it could be. I think it might be a little bit more common after people watch this on YouTube. Moving forward. So really, really good point. Andrew DeGroot. Andrew DeGroot is down in Devon, in the southwest. So what sectors do you think will be best to acquire with the coming economic environment?
Oh, that's such a good question. Boring businesses that people use day in, day out, don't go out of fashion. I was talking to someone earlier, commercial cleaning, vets, dentists, just the things that we are going to use anyway. We know that retail is touch and go. We know that. We know that getting into like the taxi business has been massively disrupted. I would always recommend, though, steering away from kind of new businesses because that's more speculative. The people that I spend the most time with are the people buying steady Eddie businesses that make 300,000 a year, 500,000 a year, 800,000 a year, year in, year out. And they go and buy several of those and then just sit back and let those businesses run themselves with management in place.
Look, I'm just loving your answers here. There's plenty of thumbs up that's coming your way behind the scenes here. What's the best approach then to contacting the business owner to see if they're willing to sell? What do you think is the best one?
It's always going to come back to letters as the sort of the best communication tool. But the very best way is to be honest and open. Sometimes people who've never bought a business before say, well, do I need to hide it or do I pretend that I've bought businesses? No, tell the truth. Just say, look, I've been running this business, my own business, for the last 5 years, and I got thinking. I went on a webinar and I got thinking about buying a business, and I thought I'd get in touch. I don't want to waste your time, but it'd be wonderful if we can have a chat to see if there's something you want to talk about.
What a beautiful answer that is. I mean, that is just be yourself. I've been on a webinar and it's really inspired me to think, and I've been considering it for a while, but it's pushed me over the edge. And
people are flattered. They'll never be upset that you've approached them. It's like, wow, someone's interested by my business. They feel good about it.
You're being comfortable in your own shoes at the same time. You're not pretending to be someone that you're not.
Absolutely.
And when you are pretending to be someone that you're not, you feel out of your depth and all of this, and you're making it bigger than what it is. So Really good answer. We've got another question here. This is from Lucas Vigilante. His nickname, by the way, is Mr. Inspiration, Lucas.
Okay.
What roles are in your acquisition team? So, what different roles have you got in an acquisition team?
Well, it might surprise you to know that I did 48 deals with a part-time virtual assistant doing the sort of the admin stuff behind the scenes. My business partner sort of vetting the businesses, and then just using a lawyer and an accountant. So very small, very, very small. And my virtual assistant was just paid for the hours that she worked. My business partner was an equity. Lawyer and accountant only get paid after the deal completes. So you don't need this big team around you. I mean, sometimes people say you need to get a board of directors before you can buy a business. I've never understood that approach. I mean, I just don't get that. The majority of people are going to be buying a business that does single-digit millions. That's going to be their first business that they buy. Maybe a little bit smaller, maybe a little bit bigger, but usually single-digit millions. You don't need a board of directors. You just need your personality, your likable personality to sit down with someone, have a cup of tea with them and say, look, if we were to buy your business, what would it look like?
Remember that question, folks, when you're tuning in here, if we were to buy a business, no, in fact, let me rewind. Go into that meeting with a smile on your face, with a cup of tea in your hand. If we were to buy a business, what would it look like?
Yeah, exactly.
Really, really nice. Thank you, Wolfster, for the light bulb moment. Hope that answered your question, Lucas. There's plenty of questions coming in here. This is Neil Sweeney. Inspiring stories and case studies, JJ. Your particular case study about turning it within a year. What changes did you make to mitigate the 300K loss? Great question.
Yeah, sure. So the business was making £300,000 a year loss, and it was very easy, even from the outside, to see why. It was massively overstaffed. It had like 85 staff, and it was actually doing things like video production, social media, and actually web design, and those departments were loss making. The parts of the business that made a profit, search engine optimization, Facebook advertising, all their profit was being eaten up in the loss-making parts. So I just kind of hacked the business around a little bit and just closed down the departments that weren't working. And I shrunk the business. I mean, it was turning over 5 million. I shrunk it down to 3 million. But now I had a 3 million turnover business that I could then sell for 1.3 million, where the 5 million turnover business was only worth £1. So it was smaller, but worth more.
Yeah, it's kind of counterintuitive to a degree, but it's kind of logical as soon as you point it out like that. Next question is from Liz Ridley over in Manchester. It is difficult retaining clients, customers of the business acquired, or is it difficult to retain the clients and customers of the business acquired? Just comment on that first. This year,
sure.
Liz is an accountant.
So it's all about the handover. So Liz, I know a number of accountants who've bought other accountancy firms. In fact, including my own accountant. I inspired my own accountants to go out there and buy 2 accountancy firms, and it's all in the handover. If you kick the owners out of the door on day one, then you're right. Clients will follow. And they won't like it. If you build in a 6-month handover period, it's almost the clients, the customers won't even notice that there's a change of ownership, and you can segue in the new people, and you just got to do it with a bit of finesse. And in fairness, in some occasions I've really messed that up, and other times I've got it right. So I've seen it from both sides.
That's another light bulb moment, Wolfie. I mean, just building that 6 months, people won't even notice. You've got time to sort of embed yourself in there. That's going to return. That's a fantastic answer to a fantastic question, Liz. Thank you very much. Neil's back on. You mentioned never run the business yourself. I think a number of people were writing this down. It was a very power statement that you put out there when acquiring. Do you have a management team that you work with initially to implement any new structures?
Yeah, so there's several ways of doing this. A good question to ask the owner of the business is, when you're on holiday, who takes care of everything? Like, oh, well, that's Jeff. Yeah, Jeff's been here since the beginning. He knows everything. He knows the customers better than I do. You think, we're going to give Jeff a promotion. let Jeff run the business. Maybe Jeff would like to do that. On one occasion, only one, I brought someone in from outside. And that was in a distressed scenario where it needed someone I completely trusted because I didn't know who to trust. So I needed my own guy to go in and run that. But the very best situation is where you're buying a business where it's not dependent upon the owner and it's already got a management team, which typically is businesses over 1 million in revenue because they're generating sufficient profit to pay an FD, a CEO, and so forth.
But it's a great question that you started with there. So when you go on holiday, who sort of runs the show?
Exactly.
Yeah, really nice. Great questions that are coming in here. We've got Kirsty. We've got Team Manchester on the call today. There's a lot of businesses here from Manchester. Kirsty Taylor, when you were looking to find a buyer for your business before initial completion, where did you look and how did you go about the conversation without showing results?
Yeah. So how did I find how did I go looking for a buyer for a business that I didn't even yet own? So I went to a colleague of mine was in that sector, and I said, "Look, in confidence, I'm in the process of buying this business. I know you've heard of it because it was quite well known in the sector. I'm buying this business, but I don't really want to own it. All I'm going to do is polish it up a little bit. I'm going to improve it, make it more profitable, and I want to sell it on to someone else. Who do you think would buy it?" And he gave me 2 names, and then one of those was the buyer. So
you are sneaky, man. This is like serious, like there's someone called Asari on the call, Asari St. Hill. This is brilliant stuff. Let me just echo that. This is pure gold. Like seriously, you're thinking about going into this world of growing your business through acquisition, growing your wealth through acquisition. You have got to be taking note in here. We've got another 3 minutes of questions. Let's see how far we can get with this, folks. Mike Greenwood's back. What due diligence is required to find a business suitable to buy?
Yeah, so it really depends what you're buying. So if you think of due diligence as and it may not be a phrase that everyone's heard before. If you think of due diligence as the survey that you get on a house. So when you're buying a house, you need to get a survey. You want to find out if there's a hole in the roof, if the cellar's damp, if the floorboards are wobbly. Okay. So due diligence is exactly the same, but on a business. So if you're buying a big house, then you're going to look at the roof, right? So you know that's going to be a cost if there's a problem. If you're buying a flat, you're probably not so concerned about the roof because that's covered by the freeholder. So it depends what you're buying as to what the due diligence is. Right. But it's certainly around consistency of income. What you don't want is a business makes a profit, makes a loss, makes a profit, makes a loss. What if you buy it today, then it makes a loss for 3 months? You've got a problem. You want a business that's going to make a profit day in, day out, regardless of itself.
Very nice. Look, we've got 90 seconds left. We're about to enter the power round. We want your hardest, fastest answers to these questions. Okay. Let's see what we've got here. Right. Tony, what's the biggest objection you've had from a seller?
It's the delusional seller who thinks their business that's making a loss is worth £1 million.
How common is that, by the way?
It's actually more common than you would imagine. So that's the biggest objection. They want more money than it's truly worth.
To leverage, boom. You see that one? That's bigger than a little ping. To leverage the finance to buy the business, what is the guaranteed assets outside the property to look for? What guaranteed assets to look for?
It's typically assets with serial numbers. So equipment, machinery, forklift trucks, diggers, manufacturing equipment. A colleague of mine just bought a balloon manufacturing business, and it's got these big equipment that blows up the balloons, stamps the logo on, and puts them in a box. So it's equipment when it comes to assets. Beautiful.
Right. Here's the last question for you. This is from Bryn. Bryn is from Manchester. What would be alarm bells to put you off buying the business? If on paper it looks fine, but are there any other alarm bells?
Yeah, sometimes you get that gut feeling, don't you? You get that instinct that not all is as it seems. Doesn't mean you shouldn't buy the business. It just means you should structure the deal doing something called an earn-out. An earn-out is where you pay according to the performance of the business. If the business goes off a cliff the next day, you pay nothing. If it goes through the roof and there's incredible success, the seller gets more. So everyone should win.
And that's time. Thank you very much. Look at this. Liz Ridley, she wants to personally thank you. She's blushing
Thank you,
with
Liz.
it. Right. So what we're going to do next, folks, what you're going to do next is you're going to look at your notes and you're going to put in the comments box, what have you learned from today that you're going to take action on moving forward? I do want to share those with Jonathan. And whilst you're typing them in the comment box, we're going to play you a 40-second video now of something that you've got to look forward to that's coming up in less than 2 months' time. It's about 6 weeks from now. It's going to change the way you market. It's going to change the way you do the work in your business and make more profits. If you can play as a video, please, Wolfster, off you go. And that's just round the corner, folks. You get those dates in your diary. You are going to want to be there, share it with everybody that you know. There's plenty of comments that are coming in. Look at this. Thank you so much. That's Andrew de Groot. Excellent session. Thank you. We've got another question here coming from the great James Burke. So who are you using to value these companies once you've approached them? I'm asking that because I've had a few text messages about who do you use to value it?
Well, you don't use anyone else to value. I mean, obviously, your accountant can help you with that. But if it's a business in a sector that you understand, you know what the value is to you. So you know that if you had those 500 clients as part of your business, what that would mean to you. Or if you could take over that key client in that and have an office the other side of your city, you know what the value is to you. We typically use a multiple of profit before tax, and that's going to be different for different sectors, different sizes of businesses.
Got it. Here's the comments. Look at this one. Liz has commented, here's my biggest learning. It's possible to buy a business without your own cash, and I strongly suspect so many people from watching this webinar have absolutely got the same one there. Nick Burridge, they ask you answer, coach. Buy a data list, get emailing. Look at that for action-oriented language. Claire Hart, great life. Thank you very much for the tips. And Bryn, I do apologize, Bryn. Bryn's had lots of comments in here behind the scenes. Apologies if I've not been able to ask everybody's questions. It's been an amazing session. So I did say Bryn Biddle was from Manchester. I don't know where you're from, Bryn. You might be from Manchester or not. It was the name that... So fantastic, brilliant session. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Look at this one. Lots of good, healthy comments coming in. Inspiring session. Thank you. That's Action Coach Paddington. Lucas Vigilante, 4 rules of buying. And the mindset required to make it happen. And on that note about the mindset, right now, can we get on screen who we've got on next week's Big Friday finish, please, Wolfster? Let's see who we've got coming up next week. That's it. The man himself, Vinny Shawman. Who is Vinny Shawman? Well, this man is the real deal. He is a master of the mind. He has shared the same seat, online stage, if you like, as Elon Musk 4 times. You're going to be thinking and performing differently instantly. He is an NLP king. He is the master of layman terms. He will resonate and you will change things immediately. So turn on, tune in, get your team, get your friends there, get your family there. This one is for everybody that you know. So see you on the call next week. Now, on behalf of everyone today and Action Coach UK, I want to thank you personally, Jonathan. That was an excellent session.
Thank you, James. Well, thank you for the invitation.
From start to finish. So all that's left to say, go have a fantastic evening, have a fantastic weekend, and make it happen next week. Bye for now.